Callum Reeve dropped his keys in the elevator the exact second the doors were closing, and if the woman holding a coffee tray hadn't lunged for them, he wouldn't have noticed her at all. "Wait here," she called, crouching just in time to scoop up the silver keyring with the engraved her initials, holding them out with a grin as she balanced 2 cardboard cups in her other hand. "You dropped these." Callum blinked. She was definitely not from his building. Her hair was a little wild from the wind, her sneakers were scuffed, and her coat looked like it had seen better days. But her voice was confident, her eyes bright. He cleared his throat, taking the keys. "Thanks. That was fast." "Lucky reflexes," she said. "I'm here for a delivery." "The law firm on 22. The elevator dinged and opened. She stepped out, turning back to him with a polite nod. "Have a nice day." He didn't say anything until the doors started closing again. Then, without thinking, he hit the door open button. "Hey, wait." She turned, surprised. "What's your name?" She hesitated. Mara Prescott." He nodded once. "Nice to meet you, Mara Prescott." Then the doors closed. Callum didn't normally talk to strangers. He barely talked to most people outside boardrooms, let alone someone who delivered coffee. But something about her voice stuck in his head the rest of the day. Mara, meanwhile, shook her head as she walked down the hallway. What was that? The guy had CEO written all over him, impeccable suit, custom shoes, presence like he owned the place. Which, knowing how New York worked, he probably did. She hadn't expected his voice to be that low or that curious, or that he'd ask her name like he actually cared. But she had rent due in 5 days, 3 shifts left at the diner, and was behind on 2 freelance design projects. Coffee delivery wasn't her career dream, it was just what paid in the meantime. Still, she couldn't stop thinking about the way he'd said her name. 2 days later, Callum saw her again. This time, she was balancing a lunch order and looking completely flustered as the bag started to tip. "Need a hand?" he asked, appearing beside her as if he'd timed it. Her head whipped up. "Oh, hi." Yeah. Thanks." He took the tray, steadying it. You again," she said, raising a brow. "You always hang out in the lobby waiting for dropped keys?" He smiled faintly. "Not really. Just lucky timing." He escorted her to the elevator, stepping in with her this time. She pressed 22. He pressed 36. "So," he said, glancing at her, "you do this full-time? Coffee and lunch runs?" She asked. "No. I'm a designer. Freelance. This is just temporary until the client pipeline fills out." "You design what?" "Branding. Logos. Web layouts. You know, the stuff companies think they can do in Canva until they realize they can't." Callum let out a laugh. A real one. She was sharp, honest, unfiltered. "I run Ravenhold Partners," he said, watching her reaction. Her eyes widened. "Wait, you're Callum Reeve?" He nodded. "Well, that explains the elevator key. And the suit. You're, what? The guy all the business blogs call the most ruthless dealmaker in Manhattan." "That's one of the nicer things they've said." Their eyes locked for a moment. Mara broke it first, laughing under her breath. "Cool. I just made fun of Canva to a billionaire. I liked it." The elevator dinged at floor 22. "This is me," she said, straightening the tray. "Thanks for the help. Let me take you to dinner." Her head snapped toward him. "Excuse me. Dinner. With me. Tonight." She blinked. "You don't even know me. I remember your name. And I know you saved my keys." She stared at him. "Is that your version of flirting?" "I don't flirt," he said. "I make offers." She laughed again, shaking her head. "That's the most CEO thing I've ever heard." The doors started closing. He caught them with his hand. "Mara." She looked at him. 7 o'clock. I'll send a car. I don't have dinner dresses. I'll handle it. I don't say yes." Mara hesitated. Her gut screamed no, this was insane. But something in his eyes wasn't arrogant, just sure. like a man who got what he wanted because he knew how to treat it once he had it. So she said, "Fine. But I'm not letting you order for me." His smile was slow. "Deal." That night, she opened her apartment door to a man in a black suit, holding a garment bag. "This is for you," he said. "From Mr. Reeve." Inside was a deep navy dress. Sleek, elegant, and clearly expensive. It fit her perfectly. When the car dropped her off, the restaurant was a rooftop spot with glittering views of the skyline. There were fresh white flowers on the table. A waiter pulled out her chair as Callum stood, looking at her like she'd just knocked the air out of him. "You look," he paused, then said sincerely, "incredible." She sat, heart racing. "This is beyond anything I expected." He leaned in slightly. "Get used to it." The dinner was easy. Too easy. They talked about movies, music, how she once tried to start her own design agency but got screwed over by an ex-client. He listened, really listened, and when she got nervous and tried to change the topic, he stopped her. "You're allowed to take up space, Mara." That made her quiet for a second. At the end of the night, he walked her back to the car, his hand brushing her lower back. "I want to see you again," he said. She looked up at him. "Why me?" He didn't hesitate. "Because you don't care who I am. And you don't pretend." She swallowed. "Okay." He leaned in. "Okay. Yes. Call me crazy." "I already did." She smiled, and before she could say anything else, he kissed her soft, certain, and warm. And for the first time in a long time, Mara Prescott forgot to be careful. Because Callum Reeve had dropped more than his keys that day, and she was about to steal more than his heart. Mara hadn't expected him at her door. Not the next morning. Not holding a paper bag that smelled suspiciously like warm croissants. "You're not supposed to show up unannounced," she said, eyeing him from her doorway. She hadn't even brushed her hair yet. "That's not very CEO of you." Callum glanced past her shoulder into the narrow hallway behind her, lined with scattered sketch pads and a leaning coat rack. "I brought breakfast. And I'm not here to impress anyone." She folded her arms. "And you just happen to know where I live? You said you lived off Bedford and 3rd. There are 12 buildings on this block." I took a guess. "You guessed right?" "I don't miss," he said simply. She sighed, glancing down at her bare feet. "I haven't even boiled water yet. I'll take my chances." He stepped in, brushing past her before she could make up her mind. She watched him move through her apartment, noting the way he didn't seem fazed by the cramped space or the peeling paint above the kitchen window. Callum set the bag on her counter and opened it. "Almond and chocolate. I didn't know which." "You brought both." "I'm thorough." She leaned against the doorway, arms still crossed. "You're impossible. I've been called worse. You're not supposed to chase women." "I'm not chasing. I'm following up." Mara grabbed a croissant and bit into it, chewing slowly. "You don't do this often." "I can tell." He sat on her worn bar stool like he belonged there. "Do what?" "Try." Callum looked at her then, really looked. "No. I don't." She swallowed. "Why start now?" "Because I can't stop thinking about you." Mara set the croissant down. Her fingers itched to reach for her sketchbook just to have something to do. "You don't even know me." "I know enough to want to." She stared at him. "This is the part where I say it's complicated and you walk away. Then don't say it." Mara hesitated. "It's not that simple." "I never said it was." She laughed under her breath. "You're a billionaire. You probably haven't heard no in years." "That's not true," he said. "I hear it all the time. From people who are afraid of the risk." "Are you?" "No," Callum said. "But I think you are." The words landed too close to her chest. She looked away, grabbing her tea kettle and setting it on the stove. "You don't get it. My life doesn't come with penthouses and private chefs. I didn't ask it to." She turned back, eyes sharp. "Then what do you want?" He stood, slow and deliberate, and took a step toward her. "I want you to stop assuming I'm here for a game." She blinked. "I want to know what your favorite album is. I want to see your portfolio. I want to know why you keep glancing at that bag of mail like it's going to explode." She looked away again. "And I want to kiss you like I did last night." Again. Silence stretched. The album's Rumors by Fleetwood Mac, she said finally. The portfolio's a mess. And the mail is late notices. He didn't flinch. Okay. That's it. I'm not afraid of real. She crossed her arms again, tighter this time. This doesn't make sense. You're not supposed to be here. Neither are you, he said. But here we are. A knock interrupted them. She frowned. Hold that thought. When she opened the door, a woman in a sharp navy suit stood holding an envelope. Miss Prescott. Yes. You've been cordially invited to present your work at the New York Creative Summit this weekend. You were nominated by an anonymous donor. All travel and accommodations are covered. Mara blinked. That's not possible. I didn't apply. The nomination was submitted this morning. She took the envelope, stunned. The woman nodded and left. She turned slowly, eyes narrowing. Callum. He looked completely unconcerned. Yes. You did this. You deserve to be seen. Her voice dropped. That's not your decision. No, he agreed. But it's my power. And I used it to put your name where it belongs. She stared at him, heart pounding. You can't just fix things with money. I didn't fix anything. I gave you a stage. What you do on it is up to you. Mara stood frozen in her doorway, hands trembling around the envelope. No one had ever done anything like this for her. Not without asking for something in return. And Callum wasn't asking for anything. He just stood there, waiting. Not pushing. Finally, she stepped back inside, holding the envelope to her chest. Do you always interfere? Only when it counts. She looked at him, eyes softer now. You're not what I expected. He tilted his head. Is that a good thing? It might be, she said, voice quieter now. But I still don't trust it. I don't need you to trust the outcome. Just the beginning. Mara didn't answer, but she walked toward him and rested the envelope on the counter between them. Fine, she said. You want to see my work? Don't blink. And she disappeared into her bedroom, returning with a worn leather binder. Callum opened it. Page after page of raw, striking visual concepts. Bold colors. Clean lines. Emotion in every brushstroke. He turned the pages slowly, reverently. You're brilliant. She didn't smile. It doesn't pay the bills. He looked up. It will. She met his gaze. You believe that? I believe in you. And for the first time in a long time, that belief didn't feel like a burden. It felt like a beginning. The penthouse was far too quiet for someone who had just dropped a bomb on Mara's entire life. She stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, arms wrapped around herself as she took in the view. The city pulsed beneath her like a living thing, too fast, too loud, too much. Especially when your world had just tilted sideways. You need to stop doing things behind my back, Callum. He didn't flinch. He was across the room, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, pouring 2 glasses of something golden that caught the light like fire. I didn't do it behind your back. I invited you to be seen. You walked through the door yourself. Don't turn this into a fable, she snapped. You dropped my name into a pool of sharks without asking if I could swim. You're not just swimming, Mara. You're making waves. She turned, heat rising up her neck. You don't get it. I've been told no so many times I started to believe it. And now suddenly, I'm the darling of a summit I didn't even apply to. People are asking for interviews. Everyone wants to know who I'm working with. Why I'm on the rise. I can't even get through my inbox. Callum walked toward her, setting one of the glasses on the table beside her. Then tell them the truth. That you were underestimated until someone finally paid attention. And what happens when they find out the truth? That I didn't earn that invite the traditional way. Then they'll learn something about the system. She shook her head. You make it sound so simple. It's not simple. But it is yours. You have a window, Mara. Use it. She stared at him, heart still racing. Do you even know what it's like to have to prove yourself every second? To have your work questioned because you didn't come from the right school or have the right contacts? Callum stepped closer, voice low. Yes. I know exactly what that's like. Her eyes flicked up. You. My father ran a used car lot in Jersey. We lived in a 2-bedroom over the shop. I wore hand-me-downs until I was 17. The first time I walked into a boardroom, they laughed at my shoes. She blinked. I built everything from the ground up. No old money. No lifelines. Just grit and strategy. Mara exhaled, her resistance cracking. Why haven't you told me that before? Because I'd rather show you who I am than tell you who I was. She looked at the untouched drink beside her. You make it hard to keep my guard up. I'm not trying to knock it down. Just asking you to let me see behind it. The silence between them shifted, less sharp now, more uncertain. Then her phone buzzed on the marble counter. She didn't move. Callum glanced at it. You expecting someone? No. But I've been dodging a dozen emails all week. He moved closer, his voice softer. You've got a decision to make. She looked up at him. You can keep waiting for the world to give you permission. Or you can take what's already yours. Her breath caught in her throat. I don't want to be your project. You're not. You're the first person who's challenged me in years. The first who didn't flinch. Mara stepped back, suddenly unsteady. I'm not used to people staying. Callum reached for her hand. Then let me show you how it looks. She didn't pull away. They didn't speak for a while, just stood there as the city glowed beneath them. Finally, she said, I've got a meeting tomorrow. A real one. A boutique agency wants to license my entire collection. He smiled, not with triumph, but something quieter, prouder. Good. That's what you deserve. You're not coming with me. I didn't plan to. I need to do this alone. I know. Mara looked at him, something inside shifting. I don't know where this is going. Neither do I, he said. But I'm not walking away. Her voice dropped. Then stay. Callum didn't answer with words. His hand moved to her waist, pulling her in with a kind of careful certainty that made her knees go weak. His mouth brushed hers once, then again, deeper this time, like he wasn't just kissing her but memorizing her. When they broke apart, she leaned into his chest, her voice barely above a whisper. If I fall, don't catch me. I won't, he said. But I'll be right there when you get back up. Mara closed her eyes. For the first time in a long time, she believed someone meant it. The meeting was over. Not just finished, but conquered. Mara had walked into that conference room with her sketches rolled under her arm and left with a licensing deal that would put her work in boutique hotels across Europe. Her name embossed on every wall tag and promotional brochure. She hadn't looked at Callum once the entire time. He'd waited in the cafe across the street, just like she asked. Now, walking back through the revolving doors of his building, portfolio case still in hand, she didn't hesitate when the receptionist greeted her by name. She just crossed the marble lobby, stepped into the elevator, and pressed the button for the top floor. She found him on the balcony, leaning against the railing with a glass of water in hand, suit jacket slung over a chair. The sun was low, casting the skyline in a haze of gold and gray. I did it, she said, stepping out into the breeze. He turned, expression unreadable for half a second. Then, I know. You weren't there. I didn't need to be. You walked in like you already owned the room. I almost threw up on the elevator. That's how you know it matters. She laughed, short and surprised. I think I'm still shaking. You should be. You just changed your life. She leaned on the opposite end of the railing, watching the wind move his shirt sleeve. They want me to head up the visual concept for a launch in Paris. 3 months, then back to New York. He looked up. You're going. I told them I needed 48 hours to decide. Do you? She hesitated. No, not really. Callum nodded once, silent. The city buzzed beneath them, but it felt a world away. I should be terrified, she said. But I'm not. I'm ready. That's because it's yours now. Not borrowed. Not gifted. Yours. Mara turned to him slowly. You were right, you know. All I needed was one person to say I could. His gaze held hers. I didn't say you could. I said you already had it. She stepped closer. Why me? Because you never asked for permission to be extraordinary. You just were. I'm not afraid anymore, she whispered. He set the glass down and closed the space between them. Neither am I. Her hands found his collar. You never said what you wanted. I want mornings with you, Not just rooftop dinners and perfect dresses. I want to see your hair tangled and your coffee too strong. I want the Tuesday afternoons and the Friday nights when you're too tired to talk but still want to be near me. Her breath stilled. I want the version of you who forgets to answer emails because she's too busy chasing an idea. I want the woman who told me once not to order for her because she could speak for herself. You remember that? She asked. I remember everything. Mara reached into her bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Then you'll remember this. He unfolded it carefully. It was a sketch him standing in the elevator, keys in hand, his stance as precise as his expression. But behind him she'd drawn light pouring in from the top corner. Not from the ceiling. From the moment. From her version of it. You drew this. I started it the night we had dinner. Finished it this morning. His voice dropped. What is it? The moment everything started to change. Callum folded the paper gently and tucked it into the inside pocket of his shirt. You're the first person I've ever met who makes me want to build something that lasts, he said. She went quiet. I bought a building in Soho last week, he continued. Used to be a print factory. I'm converting the top floor. I want you to have the rest. Mara blinked. What? A creative space. Studios, exhibit rooms, a place for young designers to show their work. No gatekeeping, no name dropping, just talent. It'll be under your name. She took a step back, overwhelmed. Callum, you don't owe me anything. This isn't about you needing me. It's me choosing to believe in something beyond profit. She stared at him, lips parting. I know what it's like to build from nothing, but you shouldn't have to do it alone. Tears pricked behind her eyes. You're not trying to save me? No, he said. I'm trying to meet you at your level. She walked forward slowly, one hand on his chest. What if I say yes? Then I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of it. The kiss that followed wasn't like the others. It wasn't urgent or cautious. It was deep, quiet, and certain, like arriving somewhere that had always been waiting. When they finally pulled apart, she laughed softly. You really shouldn't drop your keys in elevators. His hand brushed her cheek. Best mistake I ever made. Later that week, she flew to Paris. Callum went with her. They didn't burn fast. They burned steady heat and light and all the things they'd stopped believing in before they found each other. He worked from the terrace while she sketched in cafes. He held her hand through gallery openings and whispered ideas during long walks by the river. By the end of spring, she'd signed a global partnership. He'd launched the design collective under her name. And one afternoon, on the same elevator where they'd first met, he slid a small velvet box into her hand without saying a word. She didn't need to open it to know what was inside. I'm not giving you everything because I have it, he said. I'm giving you everything because I finally found someone who makes it worth sharing. Mara smiled, tears in her eyes and a lifetime ahead. So what now? She asked. He pressed the emergency stop button. Now, Callum said. We start forever. The gallery buzzed with a kind of electricity that didn't come from the lights. Conversations hummed like a low string section in the background, but Mara wasn't listening to any of it. Her fingers brushed the edge of a canvas mounted at the far end of the exhibit, bold lines, vibrant color, and her name etched into the brass plaque below in delicate serif. Callum stood to her left, not touching her, not speaking, just waiting. He knew she needed to take it in. You know what's strange? She said finally, keeping her voice low. I used to think moments like this would feel loud, explosive, but it's quiet, settled, like I'm where I always should have been. He tilted his head toward her. Because you are. She turned to him. People keep asking how this happened so fast. Like they're suspicious of it. Let them be, he said. They weren't there the nights you stayed up drawing until your hands cramped, or the mornings you walked into meetings with nothing but your portfolio and hope. I still don't know what made you stop that elevator door. I'd been in that building for 5 years, he said. And I'd never seen anyone look like they belonged more than you did. Standing there with coffee and chaos and no idea how extraordinary you were. Mara looked back at the gallery. Her work hung in a perfect arc, each piece telling a different story. Every emotion, every risk, every failure that had carved her into the woman she'd become, it was all there. And now people were seeing it. I signed the contract today, she said. Callum's brow lifted. The Paris one? No, she said, her voice catching for a second. The long-term one. New York. The agency offered to build an entire division around my work. Full creative control. I even get to hire my own team. He took a step closer. You said yes. I did, she said. Because I'm done running toward things. I want to build something right here. He didn't say anything at first. Then, you beat me to it. She turned toward him. What do you mean? I had a plan, Callum said. Tonight, after the exhibit, I was going to take you to dinner, pretend I wasn't nervous, and then ask you something I've never asked anyone before. Her breath hitched. You're nervous. I've made billion-dollar decisions without blinking, he said. But asking you to be mine forever is the one thing I can't calculate. You were going to propose? Yes, he said. But I don't want it to be just after dinner. I want it to be here, now. In front of everything you've built. Mara stared at him, her heart slamming against her ribs. He reached into the inner pocket of his suit and pulled out the same velvet box she'd seen in the elevator weeks ago. But this time he opened it. Inside was a ring unlike anything she'd imagined, sleek, understated. A single sapphire set into a thin gold band. Not flashy, not overdone, just perfect. I'm not offering you a fairy tale, he said. I'm offering you a life. One where you'll never have to doubt how deeply you're seen. Tears welled in her eyes. I want to wake up beside you when your hair's a mess and you're muttering about deadlines. I want to watch you build empires from sketch pads and coffee-stained paper. I want every version of you, especially the ones you don't show anyone. She couldn't breathe. So, Callum said, lowering himself to one knee. Will you marry me, Mara Prescott? People around them had begun to notice. The gallery had quieted, but she didn't hear any of it. Just the question. Just the man. Yes, she whispered, then louder. Yes. The room erupted in applause, but she didn't notice. His arms were around her before she could blink, lifting her off the ground as she laughed into his neck. The kiss was soft, but full of everything they'd fought to become, two people who had nothing to prove anymore, only everything to share. They didn't leave the gallery until well past midnight. Her heels were in her hand, and he walked beside her barefoot, having ditched his shoes hours ago. They wandered the quiet sidewalk, hand in hand, the city humming around them like a lullaby. Back in the penthouse, she curled against him on the couch, her head on his chest, the ring catching the light as she traced lazy circles on his palm. There's something I didn't tell you, she said. He glanced down. What? I submitted a proposal to the city for that studio building you bought. I want to turn the bottom floor into a scholarship-based mentorship program for young artists without access to galleries or formal training. Callum's brows lifted. You already drafted a proposal? I've had the idea for a while. I just didn't know if I had the right to make it real. You do now, he said. And I'll fund it. No questions asked. She looked up at him. It has to be mine, Callum. I want your support, but not your name on the door. He smiled. It'll be anonymous. Thank you, she whispered. The next morning, they woke up to sunlight spilling across the sheets and the sound of the city stirring below. Mara reached for her sketchbook while Callum made breakfast barefoot in the kitchen. Her ring sparkled beside the coffee mug he handed her, and when she glanced up at him through her lashes, she saw the same quiet certainty in his eyes, the same look he'd given her in that elevator, the day everything began. A year later, they were married in a converted greenhouse in the Catskills, surrounded by canvases painted by her students, white lilies, and string lights wrapped around beams like constellations. Callum wore no tie, just a dark navy suit with her initials stitched inside the cuff. Mara walked down the aisle barefoot, her dress simple, her bouquet wild and untamed like her. They didn't exchange vows from a script. I didn't know how much of myself I was missing until you saw it first, she told him, tears streaking her cheeks. I didn't believe in forever until you made it feel like home, he said, his voice thick. They kissed before the officiant could finish the blessing, and no one cared. Later that night, they danced under the stars, her head tucked beneath his chin as he whispered something that made her laugh so hard she nearly dropped her glass. The studio program launched that fall. Within 6 months, it had sponsored 15 artists. Within a year, it had changed lives. Callum never missed an opening or a critique night. He sat in the back, quiet, proud, always watching her with that same look like she'd stolen gravity and never given it back. And Mara? She never needed to ask if she belonged again. Because she wasn't just seen. She was loved. Fiercely. Fully. Forever.